You've tuned into Radio Northern Beaches. We live stream on rnb.org.au across the northern beaches of New South Wales, Australia and all over the world. You can also catch us local on 88.7 and 90.3 FM. Our podcasts are available at your convenience at rnb.org.au or rnbpodcast.com.au. So you and your friends don't miss any episodes. Don't forget to follow and share. Now here's our latest podcast.
Hello again, listeners. Community Radio, Northern Beaches, 88.7 and 90.3 FM, streaming live on our website, www.rnb.org.au. Our programs, Oz Music, and I'm Michael Lester. You can also catch our programs from Radio Northern Beaches now as podcasts. Just Google Radio Northern Beaches podcasts. You can find us on all the platforms, Spotify, Amazon, you name it. While music festivals, events and venues all closing down by the dozen around Sydney, but even around the country over the last few years and continue to struggle, we here in the Northern Beaches are highly fortunate and privileged to have coming up yet again here in Manly on the weekend of 19 to 21 September, the Manly Jazz Festival with some 70 acts. This is approaching the 50th year, I think it's the 48th or maybe 49th, of this longest running jazz festival in Australia. And I'm delighted to welcome to the program again to talk about it, this 2025 program, with Caroline Speight, who's the Artistic Director for the Manly Jazz Festival 2025. Thanks for joining us again, Caroline.
Thank you, Michael. It's great to be here.
Caroline, what do you think is the key to success and continuity of the festival that you've put together again this year?
Oh, wow. Well, I think certainly the longevity of it is really helped it, because I think it's become part of the culture and the fabric of the Manly and the Northern Beaches for 48 years it is. So you were pretty close. And I think also we've stayed true to the programming in terms of the type of jazz, because as you'd be aware, there's many forms of jazz, lots of music people pin the jazz label to. But with Manly, we really have stuck to, and this is something that was set up way back in the beginning when my father started the festival, was sticking to what they call the traditions of jazz, which is really that music that's from when it started, which is, early 1900 or even actually earlier than that, right through to the early 70s. And it's that sort of music that, obviously jazz was built on. And since then, there's been lots of different sort of jazz that's sort of come from those. But essentially, we've stuck to that. The bulk of the programming is in that sort of traditions of jazz style. And it's music that people can walk down and, hear a sound or hear something that they might have heard elsewhere. It might be a jazz standard. It might be something that's a bit more funky, like Stevie Wonder or whatever. But it means, that people can actually recognise and tune into it. So it's rather than original music, although we do have people that do have originals in there, it's music that people can actually recognise and relate to in some way. The other thing is it's free, which is, we're very lucky, it's free to attend. So people aren't having to make a decision about whether they can afford to come along. They can just turn up and have a great afternoon in Manly, but enjoy some fabulous music at the same time. So we get a very good following because of that.
Well, you certainly do. It's a unique sort of proposition, as you say, with the style and consistency of music over the years that's very approachable and that people can relate to. But as you say, too, it's rooted very strongly in the local community, and the community participates and enjoys. And you're very fortunate that there's such a strong roots in the community that you're able to, confront all the huge cost escalations that are associated with these events by putting on a free event. How is this done?
Oh, look, we're just very fortunate that Northern Beaches Council see it as an important part of their event calendar, and that the businesses really support it, because it does bring in, thousands of people to Manly, and obviously they're going into businesses and supporting those, spending money in them, having a nice meal, that sort of thing. So the business chamber is happy to support it because it's helping them. So we're just very fortunate that every year the council says yes, we'll do it again. And they set aside a budget for that. And as you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of festivals that have failed for various reasons, or haven't been able to continue. But whereas the council is just continues to do it, and I think that again, that's the community getting behind the festival and saying, "Listen, we see this as a very important part," and it's something that people just rely on every year to be there, and they put aside their weekend, or decide to do a day trip to Manly that weekend and enjoy some of the fabulous music that we have.
Well, it is fabulous music, but what an amazing setting you've got there, because and a vibe of the thing, if I can use that overused expression,
Mm,
because such a wonderful street, almost carnival atmosphere about it through the Corso, through
mm,
all the back streets and lanes, all the venues that are
mm,
participating with music. You've got the wonderful big
yeah.
front. You've got it's just such a wonderful atmosphere and
Mm,
vibe too. You're not in a muddy field,
mm,
tents, and it's a very family
yeah.
oriented event too, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. That's the way we want it. It's there's something for every age group there, and it's absolutely delightful to see the toddlers and the young kids, dancing away in front of the stage. They don't really know what they're listening to. They just love the beat and love the happy music, which is another reason we try and stick to that sort of era of music, because it is easy for someone to sort of tune in and clap along or tap along to it.
Well, talk about the local feel and the community and the young kids. One of the strong features that you always have at these Manly Jazz Festivals is you feature a lot of the young upcoming musicians in the
Mm,
beaches area, particularly their participation in school bands here. And I think
yeah.
this year you've got some 16, I think, school bands
Mm,
performing, haven't you? What a
mm,
wonderful platform and
yeah.
community feeling that creates.
And we're always, people oversubscribed, which is a shame because I'd love to give, another 16 some gigs as well, but we just don't have the days or the stages to do that. Those kids often go on to become professional musicians. And if they're not doing that, they're going into community bands because there's a lot of those out there now. And we have a stage or a day, an afternoon in the church of community bands. I was subscribed there too, but I can only put on, 8 or so in an afternoon. There is an audition process for that. We still want to retain a certain quality too in the festival. If I had more stages and more days, I'd put everybody on and give everyone a go. But when you're sort of a bit limited by that, you want to make sure you're always giving good quality to people.
Well, it is very participative and inclusive, which partly I think might explain
Mm,
the strong attraction the community and support has for it. When you say
mm,
these community bands, are these big bands that
mm.
you've got 7 or 8 of appearing as well as the school bands, and in addition to them?
Yeah, they're usually in the St. Matt's Church, and they comprise people that have gone into adulthood but still want to play music, and they're not in a school or a university where they can do that. So they'll go in and they continue to perform, and they join one of these big bands, that there's a couple based on the beaches and some a bit further afield, and they're often led by professional musicians who are still operating in professional bands. It's encouraging that, and it's great to see that continuing.
Another element of the sort of participative and inclusive style of the thing is you feature over the 2 days, or maybe 3 or 4 days, roving performances. What's the nature of these,
Mm.
and what sort of music is that, and where and how?
Yeah, so there's a few different ones we have. There's one called the Sentosa Trio, which again they're local, grown up locally, on the beaches, but now sort of old adults, and they're acoustic, so because that's why they can rove. But they'll play anything from jazz standards through to popular tunes, but in that jazz style. Again, the point of the roving bands is to add to the atmosphere. So all of that sort of music will be entertaining and upbeat. So as people are walking through, they might not be at a stage, but they might be a jazz band, or one of these roving bands in the corner playing some good tunes. They're entertaining and fun, and we get a lot of great feedback on them.
Well, they create a wonderful atmosphere, obviously, too, almost a carnival
Mm,
atmosphere. I think you've got nearly 10 of them over 2 days participating,
yeah.
so they're around the place. And in terms of the
Mm,
atmosphere and its openness, you, as well as your four stages, which feature the main acts that we'll talk about in a second, that are the main
mm,
performances, you also have a
mm.
number of other what you call official venues. What's the nature of
Yeah.
these, the engagement and the music in these?
Yeah, well, this is great. It's basically the council, puts us local venues to put out an expression of interest to be part of the program. And typically, most of the performances are in the evening, which is good because that's the music stops on the outdoor stages at around about 6 o'clock, and then people can still continue to enjoy music by moving inside. The venues program their own music, so sometimes it's not necessarily jazz because they're programming it to suit their clientele. But in some cases, it is musicians that are jazz musicians that have been hired by these venues to continue being part of the festival. So it's great again that we can get more local businesses involved, and in turn, they're sort of people are coming to Manly to enjoy music. They want to have a meal after it's all over, and hopefully they'll go into these venues that are already putting some music on as well, and they can keep enjoying that atmosphere.
Well, I'm speaking here on Community Radio Northern Beaches Oz Music with Caroline Speight, the artistic director of the Manly Jazz Festival, which is on from 19 to 21 September in Manly and at the Corso and all the lanes and streets and beachfronts around on four stages, as I say, 19 to 21 September, with over 70 acts. Now, you've got four stages. I think you've got two main stages, have you, with the main performances on the Saturday and the Sunday. Is that right?
Yeah, so we've got the oceanfront stage, which is the one right at the end of the Corso, back that basically is on the beachfront. And that's probably our largest stage, which enables me to program larger bands, larger format bands. And the other stage of professional musicians is the Sydney Road stage, which is smaller, probably, 6 pieces, about the biggest you can get. We no longer have the John Speight stage in the Corso, and that was pretty much due to funding post-COVID. We had to scale back. But, who knows? We might get that back at some point, but fingers crossed. But so we've got the two professional stages, and they go from, 11 o'clock in the morning on the beachfront through till 6 o'clock. And then Sydney Road starts a similar time and goes through till 6 o'clock. So we're able to program 10 or 11 so bands in an afternoon.
In terms of the acts, you've got a whole range of wonderful acts,
Mm,
consistent with the way you've styled the event and the sort of music you're presenting,
mm,
but still a pretty broad range of different styles and approaches and performances.
absolutely.
I
Yeah.
noticed one
Yeah.
of the performers you've got there is a very celebrated Australian jazz musician and vocalist, originally from Newcastle, I believe, who I caught years ago
Mm,
in New York, Nikki Perrott, who plays the bass and
yes.
sings and used to play
Mm,
New York with Les Paul for 10 years. What's she going to
yes.
be performing and how?
Oh, well, she's performing in a few iterations across the weekend. So she's basically just going to come and hang out, and she's going to play with her own trio, and that'll be the Great Ladies of Jazz. So that's celebrating, Ella Fitzgerald and other jazz standards. So that will be fantastic. And then she's playing in another group. Well, in fact, a few different groups. So, one's with just a trio and a guitarist, and that's with Andrew Dickerson. And then another band she's playing in is a band which is more funky, called Boogaloo Biscuit, which is led by Todd Hardy, who again lived on the beaches, moved up north, and has returned to the beaches. So we're lucky to have him back because he's adds a great depth to our music talent here in Sydney. So that'll be a lot of fun.
So you've got an additional event. Is it on the Thursday night?
Yeah. And this is something, it's actually Lifeline, Northern Beaches, Mossman, Kirribilli, and they do fundraising to make sure they keep the services that they offer going, which are very, very important for suicide prevention and saving lives. So the only way they can do that is through fundraising. So I have a personal experience with a suicide in my family. So I said to them, look, we've got all these great musicians in town. They're happy to give their time to an event to raise money. And basically, we made that happen. So it's Lifeline's event. I'm helping them with the music side of things, and some of those musicians that we've already mentioned, Todd Hardy, Nicky Perrott, Andrew Dickerson, Nick Jeffries, Dan Barnett, and Peter Locke are all contributing their time for this event. So we're hoping to sell tickets to that. Sold some, but we'd like to sell more so that we can raise as much money as we can on that evening. So that's Thursday, the 18th of September. It's at 7:30 in the Manly Pacific Hotel. It's called the Jazz Lounge. You can find it on Facebook. But it also, if you just Googled Lifeline Northern Beaches, it comes up as part of their events that they have.
Now, I'm talking here on Oz Music Radio Northern Beaches, Caroline Speight, the Artistic Director of the forthcoming Manly Jazz Festival 2025, 19 to 21 September, the longest running jazz festival in Australia, her 48th or 49th year of running, I think. It's an amazing achievement and sounds like a great couple of days over the weekend. Now, on the Saturday, you've got a number of very significant acts. You've got Craig Calhoun on funky and bassy music. You've got a 16-year-old local bass player, Galileo Risby, and you've got Kid Hank from New Orleans style. This is quite a variety of material, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Craig Calhoun is legendary. I mean, he's been around a long time around the traps, but and he does a lot of funk music. So we put him on last on the oceanfront stage on Saturday because it's a great way to finish the day with a little bit of funk and fun there. So he always performs really well, and he's so enthusiastic and excited about coming back to Manly because he hasn't been there for a few years. So it'll be great to see him perform again. You mentioned Galileo, who's a young bassist. Galileo Risby is the son of Bill Risby.
Accomplished jazz pianist, isn't he, from the area?
Very, very, very. He's great, Galileo and Bill. They're fantastic family, and they're put together a great little group. So it'll be great to see him perform, and good to give him an opportunity to perform with his dad. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that.
You've got New Orleans style jazz music. I mean, that's quintessential jazz music and atmospheric street music, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you mentioned Kid Hank, yes. I think it's fantastic to see these younger musicians, honouring the traditions of jazz by playing this New Orleans style music. It's too easily lost. So it's nice to see that there's a whole group of musicians now coming in that sort of, early 30s age group that are still playing things like New Orleans jazz or bebop or, modern jazz, those sorts of things, and honouring where, jazz started and where it came from. So it's nice to see that coming through again. And it means with them, plus, others that have maybe gone down the more contemporary jazz route, we're kind of covering all our bases. It's fantastic.
On the Sunday, you're back to the funk and soul, but I think with three lady vocalists out front of Nick Jeffries.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be powerhouse. It's going to be such a great performance, that one. They're great singers, all of them. Nick himself is a great singer and saxophonist. So that's a real treat for people to come down because that'll be bursting with energy and a fantastic way to finish the festival on that Sunday.
But there's also on the Sunday...
John Harkins. John's incredible pianist. I've always loved the way he played, and he's from Chicago originally. And he's sort of a master of the bop tradition and the energetic swing. So he came out of Chicago, Detroit, and actually studied classical piano in New York and has played with a lot of the great musicians over in America. But then moved to Sydney, lucky us, and now he's part of he's been part of the music scene ever since, and that'll be fantastic. And he's just done an album, so he'll probably do some songs off that. Who knows? He'll turn up on the stage. I just turn up and I'm surprised. I obviously book the bands through the band leader. But I don't dictate, obviously, who they have with them. So, they need to work that out. And so it's nice sometimes I turn up didn't realise you were on the gig. And yeah, so it's good. It's great to see.
And as we wrap up here on Oz Music Radio Northern Beaches with Caroline Speight, Artistic Director, Manly Jazz Festival on the weekend 19-21 September in Manly. Go along, listeners. It's a wonderful event to participate in and take the family along to, in a wonderful setting and a wonderful atmosphere. One last act just caught my eye on the Sunday is a guitarist by the unusual name of Yannick Coffey.
Yeah, so Yannick again is one of these young musicians coming through. Very good guitarist. Again, he gets used a lot on his on gigs. Was a bit of a prodigy when he was younger, and I think he was even you start on the Oprah Winfrey show. She got him on there to a very young age, or something like 8, and so that's sort of his claim to fame. But even then, he was a great player. So, but yeah, a very accomplished guitarist. You'll see him in a few different bands, I'm sure, across the weekend.
Well, thank you very much, Caroline Speight, organising yet again the Manly Jazz Festival, 19-21 September. Get along, listeners, for over 70 acts over the weekend. And Wonder of Wonders, it's completely free and you don't need to book or buy any tickets. You just roll up with you and the family, take in the atmosphere, the food, the people, the music, the setting. A wonderful weekend community-based attraction, strongly supported by the Northern Beaches Council and the community themselves. Thanks very much, Caroline, for joining us on Radio Northern Beaches. And all the best.
Thanks, Michael. Thank you very much.
Australia, the lucky country. We've got meat pies. We've got the world's best beer. But most importantly, top of the list, we've got Radio Northern Beaches 88.7, 90.3. Now hitting the entire world on www.rnb.org.au.